Hello, everybody, and welcome to Recovering Out Loud, the podcast where we talk about addiction and mental health recovery. Today's guest is Scott Graham, a licensed clinician who's been working in the addiction and mental health, including corrections, since 1988. In addition to being a psychotherapist and life coach, Scott is the author of 28 books. His work spans topics like marijuana legalization, grief, psychedelics, behavioral change, and recovery, all approached with a practical, no BS style. He's also spent over 260 days in silent meditation, bringing a unique depth to his perspective. Today, we'll explore the messy, meaningful realities of healing without the sugarcoat. Scott tells us his story and how he got into the addiction and mental health field. We talk about marijuana legalization and practical realities. We discuss grief and healing and life after loss, psychedelics and behavioral change. We talk about meditation and the Buddhist life design and deep presence. I had a blast today with Scott, and I hope you get something out of it too. Enjoy the show. Scott Graham, how are you doing today?
I am doing great. It's really raining here, but I am still doing really great.
Yeah.
I don't know if the rain's ever going to stop, but I'm doing great.
Yeah, you're calling in from Boston. I was about to say Boston.
Yeah.
I'm saying it like you, Boston, Massachusetts. And I appreciate you coming on and taking the time. It's amazing how the internet works, these days. I truly believe the universe, God, whatever you want to call it, puts people in my path, and I can choose whether or not to accept those messages or decline them, right? And you came
Right.
into my path, and I'm grateful for that because I'm very interested to learn what you have to talk about with regards to addiction, but also mental health as a broad spectrum. So why don't you get started and tell us a little bit about yourself, your story, and how you got into this field.
So I'm actually in a lot of different fields, and I've been working initially as a therapist, substance abuse counselor since 1987, and started working in a collaborative program between Outward Bound, which is kind of like early Hoods in the Woods type stuff, and Beach Hill Hospital, which ran a substance use program looking for people who have wilderness skills and substance abuse stuff. And from there, I worked and managed an outpatient program for 400 and some people with the Vermont Department of Corrections, and then launched my own coaching practice, and then started writing books in 2015. And it's been like a roller coaster of books. I'm now working on my 29th book.
Wow.
I just published my 28th book, and they are on every single possible topic you can possibly imagine. I'm not kidding. Really, really. And so there's a lot of different things we can talk about. And if you're even bored about not wanting to talk about addictions, one of my most recent books is Sup With Your Pup. Those are my two dogs. I taught my dogs how to paddleboard.
What?
No information on how to do paddleboarding on the internet. And so I ended up writing a book about that. And I read everything. So.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love paddleboarding. It's one of my favorite things. My wife and I go paddleboarding on Lake Ontario here, and it's true. There's no instruction manual on how to paddleboard for anybody. Like it's a pretty steep learning curve at the beginning, right? You get up and you fall a few times, and everyone's watching and laughing at you. But it's fun. It's a lot of fun. I love the idea of being out in the ocean with nature. There's something very special and calming about that. Yeah.
Huge. Yeah. And there's very few things to keep you separated from your foolhardy decisions when you're out there. You have to be prepared. So I've learned, interestingly enough, I learned how to paddleboard at the same time I taught my dogs how to paddleboard with no information on anything. And we're pros now. We're paddleboarding pros.
Yeah, I love it. That's amazing. So what inspired you to enter the field of addiction or mental health back in 88, you said?
Yeah, it was actually, Anthony, I was working as a bartender. And I'd gotten a degree in psychology, and I was looking for someone came up to me and said, you got these degrees, you get to do something with it. And that got me involved in working in a alternative school program. and youth, and there was a lot of substance abuse there that we talked about. But the big gap was that I had done a lot of hiking. I hiked the Appalachian Trail. I was a
Wow.
big outdoors person, and I had all these wilderness skills. And this program, which was substance abuse in the woods for 21 days, year round. So we were out for 21 days in the middle of the winter. And you only had to know what you were doing. And so they had trouble finding people that had both skill sets. They could find people that had a good wilderness skill set and knew nothing about substance abuse and
Mm.
counseling. And then they could find people that were really good with substance abuse and counseling, but there was no way. So I was saying that the place that I started working with inner city kids in
Mm.
an alternative school program. That's how I first started working in substance use. And then this opportunity came about for an outward bound program that was looking for therapists. And their dilemma was that they had wilderness instructors who had no counseling skills, no substance abuse skills. And at the same time, they could find substance abuse counselors that had no wilderness skills. And I was at the start of my profession in substance abuse counseling, had hiked the Appalachian Trail, had done a lot of wilderness canoeing. I had both skills in the pieces that they really needed. So they reached out
Right.
to me, and boom, that's how I got started.
Wow. And the wilderness program, can you describe that a little bit? Because I know a little bit about it just from when I was in rehab. There were some guys that had gone to it. What is the wilderness program?
So this program is not like the hoods in the woods stuff that you would see like in
Okay.
Utah, where they would like
That's what I'm
come in
thinking
and
of.
drag a kid out and
Yeah.
force them to eat maggots and
Yeah.
squirrel meat. And it wasn't like that. It was a traditional outward bound program that was broken up into training, main, and final expedition. Had a rock climbing element, had a solo element, had a race at the end, a run that you did at the end, just like all outward bound courses. But it included a substance abuse, substance treatment, substance counseling focus, mental
Mhm.
health counseling focus. And we would go out for 21 days at a time, and it had a family component, so families could kind of get what was going on with their kids. And we would go camping for 7 days and then come back in and resupply. And then in the summertime, we'd go canoeing in the middle of the thing. And then there would be a final expedition. And the general strategy of Outward Bound is two things: to put somebody in a outside their comfort zone
Mm.
so that they have to grow and expand, and to build their competencies so that by the end of the course, on the courses that went really well, those last kind of 4 days of the course, the students were kind of on their own. We were with them, we were trailing along behind them. They could reach out, but the goal was that they had built enough skill set that they could cook together as a group, work together as a group, make their decisions as a group, and get from point A to point B.
Right. So
Um,
really giving them usable life skills, right? For after.
Yeah, because, and more than just the canoeing piece or the camping piece, really understanding planning, living in the moment, taking things a day at a time, communicating with other folks, trusting what they're doing is. I mean, all these pieces are really critical skills that they got. So definitely not this drag them off, beat them down type, crush them. It was not like that at all. It was very empowering.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, that's the one I was referring to because those are the ones that I heard of for troubled kids. Let's call it troubled youth. Was there a moment you would say, Scott, where that really shaped your approach early on, like a moment
Well,
or a case that you worked with?
What really shaped my approach in my own life was that I was a student on an Outward Bound course in
Huh.
1984. It was a 10-day course in the Florida Everglades. It wasn't geared for youth at risk. It was an adult course. There, I was in college at that time, and in my early 20s, and the philosophy of Outward Bound, which is really summed up in their motto, which is to strive, to serve, and not to yield,
Hmm.
really has shaped my entire, and it's really shaped my entire life, even to this day.
Huh.
Um,
Awesome. I want to get into the marijuana legalization because that was big here in Canada when that happened. For a lot of reasons, dispensaries started popping up all over the place, and we started knowing a little bit more about what we were putting in our bodies in terms of, you know,
uh-huh. I'm
THC
looking
and
for books.
and love
There
it.
we go. That's
Determining
the book.
marijuana. Yeah, love it. What from your clinical perspective, what do you think the most misunderstood aspects of the legalization of marijuana is today?
Well, there's a couple of pieces. It's gone too fast.
Mm,
It has gone too fast, and so we now have had this proliferation of marijuana stores, which without any consistency among marijuana products. And one of the biggest issues, I think you just had hit on it. You said, "What do we call these places around Canada?" They are called marijuana
dispensaries, yeah, yeah,
dispensaries. There's all of this medical terminology that goes along with it, and it's not by accident. It is not. It's strategic.
mhm,
So we talk about doses, we talk about dispensaries. It's this medicalization, and that's going to be a problem. I'm not saying that that it's people are working toward that problem, but the consequence of that is that someday, if it hasn't happened already, you're going to have somebody say, "I need to be stoned all the time because it's my medicine. I
yeah,
need to take my medicine, and that's going to be help me get stoned all the day. That's what I have to do to get through work." If somebody was anxious about their job, and just put this into perspective, someone was anxious about their job and said, "You know what? I need to microdose tequila all day long." We'd be like, "What? What?
yeah,
What? What did you just say?" Yeah, yeah, yeah. I take a half a shot at 9, and then I do a shot at 10, I do a shot at 11, and I'm not intoxicated because I'm below the legal limit, but it just takes the edge off. I'm
yeah,
microdosing tequila. We'd be like, "Get out of here."
yeah,
That's a real possibility that can happen, and someone's going to say, "You are violating my rights because this is a medical condition, and I need to be stoned all the time." That's just
hmm,
one of the consequences of this haphazard slapping it all together.
yeah. I would it's almost, as you were talking there, I was thinking like it's helping me, right? And that's the excuse you hear a lot in addiction and recovery circles is like it's helping me, it's my medicine, it takes away the edge off, if you will, right? A lot of people come in saying that. So yeah, it's funny to think of it like that for sure. Um
People say the
you
same thing about alcohol. It's
yeah,
helping me, right?
yeah,
It helps me be more relaxed. I'm trying to meet people. I can talk to people better. People don't start taking heroin because it's hurting them.
yeah,
They take it because it's helping them for some reason or another. They're getting something positive from that.
yeah.
It's only after a while that they're like, "Oh shit, uh, this is not the fabled promised land that heroin was said to be."
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, it's true. Like I wouldn't have got into drugs and alcohol if it didn't do something for me at first, right? And then it becomes just problems, right? It's fun with problems and then just straight problems after that. I can't hold up my job. I can't, keep my relationships intact. I can't, have any goals or aspirations because all I care about is the next high, right?
Right, right.
Yeah.
So that's just one outgrowth. The other outgrowth that's kind of related to this is that there is, and this directly addresses substance abuse treatment. We have no idea what the hell people are taking when they put this in their body, and so all I'm suggesting is that what we need is a standard. There is more information on the back of a box of Oreo cookies than
Mhm.
there are, and that's appalling. And that's really appalling. It should be appalling
Yeah.
that than there are in these marijuana products. We need a consistent, like we can look at a box of Oreos and say this is how much fat is in it, and we can look at a box and we know what the serving size is, and we can look at a box of potato chips and say this is how much fat and this is what the serving size, Doritos serving size, all the way across everything. You cannot do that with marijuana products. So it's a crapshoot. And go low and go slow, or whatever the hell they're saying these days, is just a baloney. It's just, that's baloney. Can you imagine if they did that? Well, this is what we're teaching you since you've had 3 DWIs. Go low and go slow and go low.
Yeah.
Then people will be like, what? Oh yeah, you've got an issue with cocaine. This is what you need to remember. Go low and go slower. Go slow and go lower. Whatever the hell it is. People be like, what? When you take the marijuana out of the equation and replace it with any other substance, it's like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
We
It's
know. Do they
fascinating.
have proof in Canada when you buy your liquor? Do they talk about it in proof? What do
We
you?
don't normally, no. I would say when people make it themselves, they talk about it in proof, like moonshine over here, or
Yeah.
in the Italian culture, it's called grappa,
Mhm.
they talk about it in proof, but mostly it's the percentage of alcohol that we
Okay.
talk about.
So that's clearly you get a thing that's 40% alcohol, or it's 80 proof, right? That's 40% alcohol. It's proof in the United States. That translates to 40% alcohol, right? And that's different than something that's 200 proof. It's 100% alcohol, and so
Mm,
you can tell what you're getting. You can pick up a beer and it's got a percentage of the alcohol in it, and that if you get a beer, you drink the same beer that's 6% and one's 3%, that's going to impact you differently, much deeper, because it's got twice the amount. There's not that with marijuana at all,
yeah.
at all.
I think too, and this leads into my next question, but the legalization of marijuana has, I mean, at least when it comes to alcohol, a lot of and I know myself, a lot of the time it was like, I had this justification in my head. Well, it's legal. I'm not doing anything wrong. Right. And so now that's kind of translating into the marijuana thing where it's like, well, it's legal. So I'm not doing anything wrong. It's not that bad. At least I'm not doing heroin. Meanwhile, marijuana does take down lives, right? It's all how you use it. So how has the legalization impacted your clients in their recovery?
It's been one of the pieces that I do here in America now. One of my main substance abuse gigs is working as an SAP, substance abuse professional for the Department of Transportation. Somebody comes up positive on a drug test, they have to see a substance abuse professional. They can't drive anymore. And I get people all the time that are like, well, it's legal. I
Mhm.
don't understand. I'm like, all right, and this is the problem, because they can't, because there's not a piece to measure. They can only measure whether it's in your blood or not.
Uh,
Whether it's whether, so they do a urine test and they're like, it's in your system. They can't give you a breathalyzer like they can with alcohol and say you're intoxicated.
right.
So somebody could smoke marijuana 20 days ago.
That's what I was gonna say. It has a long half life too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Get behind the wheel of a truck, get in an accident, get drug tested because of the accident, and then they're like, oh, well, you were positive for marijuana, as if they were stoned while they were driving.
Right. Right.
Well, it's because we don't know our ass from our elbow with this stuff, and the stuff got all passed too early, right? If it was still an illegal drug, we wouldn't have this. But it's people can do this. People have it at parties. People could eat an Oreo, a chocolate chip cookie that's laced with marijuana, and you're not going to know it. And that's happened. So people are like, I don't know how I got this in my system. Well, you got it in their system somehow. And it's just floating around, and you can't have it in your system, even though it's legal in Vermont, or even though it's legal in Massachusetts, or even though it's legal in wherever the hell it is. It's not federally legal, and even if it was, they still wouldn't be. You still couldn't take it because they have no way of telling you whether you were driving stoned or not.
Yeah. You know what? I never thought of that. It's a great point, right? And a lot of people probably get into trouble for that when they maybe weren't stoned during the act, right?
Right.
Huh.
It is so inconsistent that somebody can take a. I always get these mixed out because there was a Italian restaurant when I went to school called CDBs or CBDs, but people can take like CBD or hemp oil, right? Put that as a massage piece, or take that to help them sleep at night with that, and it's got no psychoactive effect.
Right.
That is going to make that person positive for marijuana. And then they're like, I didn't even do marijuana. I was doing this. Well, it's too bad you're stuck because the technology hasn't kept up and the Department of Transportation doesn't care. They can't care if the Department of Transportation allows any wiggle room.
Mm.
And it's probably the same in Canada. If there's any wiggle room, then somebody could like weasel that. And the last thing they want is somebody driving a school bus into a building,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
There's no exception. It's black and white, no gray area.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
What, in your opinion, what do you think, if there is one, what is the solution or a possible solution?
We need to, I'm not saying not legalize marijuana. We need to have a consistent measurement piece across.
Mm,
I mean, we've got the science to send people to the
yeah.
moon. Geez Louise. We should be able to figure out a consistent piece. Every single legislator should require, they don't have to, as a legislator, they don't have to even say what it needs. They all they have to say is there needs to be consistent labeling on marijuana across all products across all of Canada, so that every single person knows what it's taking, and how much THC is in there and how long it's going to last. They just have to write that in, and people are going to have to figure that out. They should stop using medical terms for marijuana. We should not be going to the marijuana dispensary. We go to the grocery store, we go to the liquor store, we go to the hardware store, we go to the marijuana dispensary. Like, they should be like, no, it's no medical terms for marijuana in your publications, your marketing, your this. It's the marijuana store.
Yeah.
Easy.
What, yeah. Yeah. Sometimes it's too simple, right? It's too simple and we overcomplicate things. What guidance would you give somebody that's struggling with marijuana? I mean, maybe all drugs, but what guidance what would you say to someone struggling with this?
It's if you're struggling with marijuana, these days it's a tough place to be, because you have the marijuana industry saying it's not a problem. You have people that don't even know what constitutes a problem, right? If you went up, this true story, I'm getting a hip replacement on July 7th. I've already had 2 knee replacements. I had to go for like your pre-intake, whatever the hell it is. They asked me all kinds of questions, how much they wanted to know, how many, how much junk food I was eating and what my exercise was, blah, 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 blah. Question about alcohol: how much alcohol do you take? And I gave them an answer to that, and I asked them after I gave them that answer, is that good or bad, right? I said, maybe I'll have a beer a week, and so I was just making these up. I know I was lying to the I was just making, because I wanted to see what it's just a stupid intake, and so he said, "Oh no, that's fine. We want to be concerned about." And then he went off something, if you're drinking every day or if you're doing this. Not even, in substance abuse, what we used to call, relief drinking. There's a point in your addiction cycle where, let's think about this. This is just wild. As I'm thinking about this, and you just asked, there's a point in your addiction cycle where you move into relief drinking. Or so it's just talking about alcohol. You're drinking beer on a regular basis, and it's fun. And suddenly it switches where you're not just drinking for fun, you're drinking to get relief from your day.
Yeah.
So alcohol becomes a coping skill. Well, geez Louise, marijuana is marketed as a coping skill. You should microdose. Oh, you've already skipped that piece. Anyway, I said to the doctor, she said, well, how are you managing pain? And I said, well, because she didn't ask about marijuana, even though it's legal. It's crazy. I said to this person, I gave him this obnoxious number. I said, I'm doing a milligram every hour from when I wake up. And then at 5 o'clock, I do 2 milligrams. At 7 o'clock, I do another 2 milligrams. When I'm getting ready to go to bed at night, I'm just making this up, 9 milligrams. At 9 o'clock, I do 5 milligrams. At 10 o'clock, I do 5 milligrams. Then I go to bed. She's writing this down. Deer in the headlights, right? Like, I said to the intake person, I'm like, is that good or bad? They just looked at me like this. I'm like, I got to know. Is that too much? Can I do more?
Yeah.
Clueless. Can you just think about that? There's this substance that people are putting in their body, and the medical profession is clueless as to whether this much is good, that much is good, this way is the clueless.
Yeah.
Um, and it's legal. I'm not saying make it illegal. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying we shouldn't be clueless.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, especially too, and this leads me into the next point I wanted to talk about with this upcoming psychedelic trend, right? This psychedelic yeah, treatment process that they're doing, right? Like it's very possible that this could also too become legal one day. We don't know mushrooms, I'm blanking on the proper name of them now, but
Psilocybin.
thank you,
That's
psilocybin.
one here. Yeah,
Yeah.
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 I've written 4
Uh,
books on psychedelics.
and so what's your take on, current interest in psychedelics for mental health and addiction?
I would say, that uh, psychedelics are following the same trajectory like marijuana. It's being promoted as you hear people say, I have to take my medicine,
Mm.
medicine like that. It's even, they're not saying dosage. They're saying, this is my medicine, my sacred medicine they have to take. And the there's some focus around microdosing, but the real focus is doing these for the average person as it's unfolding is doing these psychedelic experiences. So I've never done psychedelics before. I'm looking for a thing that's going to pick a topic, help me be a better manager, help me be a better husband, help me deal with anxiety, help me deal with depression, help me grow my bald hair back, help me, it goes on and on and on and on and on and on and
Yeah.
on. And so what you do is you do this psychedelic experience, which is to take this, in a 2-hour block and then apply it to your life. We Now here's the shtick. Now I've written 2 books on this. Got to show these. Hold on.
No problem. Yeah.
What happens when you write a lot of books, right? So
Yeah.
we've got the psychedelic preparation workbook. Now, interestingly, I've written 28 books. This is the #1 bestseller right now.
Huh.
More people
Wow.
are selling like hotcakes.
Yeah. That says a
Um,
lot. That says a lot about society. Yeah. Yeah.
nobody's buying the Buddhist book on how to be better, live a better life that's in alignment with Buddhist ethical principles.
We
But
want shortcuts.
they want, but yeah, that's the world we live in.
Yeah.
We want shortcuts. And then this is the other book, which is the psychedelic integration workbook. This is so one's a before and one's an after. And I wrote them and have done this stuff because if the psychedelic wave hits, I want to be ready to paddleboard on top. I'm just
Yeah.
sitting on the paddleboard in the ocean now, waiting, ready to go, all geared up with the 2 dogs. But I'm the truth of it. I'm going to minimize this. So we talked about Outward Bound earlier. My that was my experience, and so Outward Bound would do these 1-day programs, 3-day programs. An outgrowth of Outward Bound called Project Adventure, doing ropes courses, would do these experiences, push people outside of their comfort zone, challenge them in ways. And what they would do before they did these intense weekend or even 1-day experiences, they would do all this preparation work. What kind of person do you want to be? What's going to be important to you? Blah, 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 blah. They do this, and there'd be this almost therapeutic element around the experience. Oh my God, I said I didn't want to be, I need to listen to people more, and I just spent half the day not listening to people.
Right.
Ding, 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 ding. Then they would do integration afterwards and say, all right, so now that you know this about yourself, how are you going to change your life? Let's come up with a plan now that you've had this big insight from this peak experience
Yeah.
that this is the thing. You've prepared, you've had this peak experience. Let's talk about how you can change your life. Take action. It's the same damn thing as psychedelics. And then psychedelic people are going to be like, no, 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 no. It's the exact, there's this experience that you have that gets wrapped up with some pre-work and some post-work. And how's your life going to be different? That is the model for psychedelics as it's going out there. It's the same thing we did in Outward Bound. It's just wrapped in a different wrapping paper.
Yeah, an easier, softer way, if you will, right?
Yeah.
For some people anyway. I've heard some people have some very, I've never done psychedelics. My experience with them, and this is just my experience, right? I'm not an expert in the field, but I was very close to doing an ayahuasca retreat. I signed up, I paid the money. Some shaman, is it, I believe they're called?
Mhm.
Yeah, she was gonna take, she takes a group of people up north. I was recommended by a friend who had something had changed about him. I had seen some sort of serenity in this guy, and I was very interested. I wanted to find God. I wanted to find spirituality. And I was talking to my therapist one day. She's an addict as well herself. And she said to me something that changed my perspective of it. She said, "Do you know anybody that has done one psychedelic trip, one psychedelic experience, one?" And I thought about it for a while. And in my circle, my experience, no, I've never met somebody that's done one. And she said to me, "Well, what's the chances? What are the chances that you're just going to stop at one? How do you know this isn't going to become your addiction?" And that's why I say, from my perspective, I know today that it's not for me. There's other ways to find a spiritual experience, to find God for me. But it's a slippery slope, this psychedelic thing for me. Although I'm very intrigued in it, I believe it helps a lot of people, and the data and the studies that are coming out are very promising. I'm excited to see where it goes. But for this addict and alcoholic, I don't touch it today because I don't know what's going to happen if I do. Right?
So let me ask you this. This is an important piece. Think about this before you answer
Yeah.
this. Why are you intrigued?
Mm.
What is the intrigue about? What is, because you use that word specifically.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
intrigued.
Yeah.
What's and it's important. Your answer is important because I think it's going to relate to a lot of the listeners out there. Why are you intrigued?
Yeah. It's a great question. It's a fabulous question. I think originally I remember there was a point in my life where psychedelics kept coming up in social media, in it was showing itself to me. I
Mhm.
had another therapist that was talking about her psychedelic experience, and so it started opening these doors to my mind where these people were talking about it with such vigor and such enthusiasm and how it really helped them. It was very hard, and they talked about, meeting the devil and meeting God and all these things. I think for me, ultimately, I wake up every morning, and my goal, maybe not every morning, but my ultimate goal is to find this God, this higher power. I think I've found it, through recovery work, through 12-step work and other stuff like that. But I think for me, I want that shortcut. If I'm being honest, I want the shortcut to spirituality, to God, to a spiritual experience, and I want this experience that I don't have to work for, essentially.
Yeah. No, you hit it. I knew you were going to say that. In our just brief time of knowing each other and knowing about your history and your experience, you would get it. So there's two pieces to that. The intrigue is almost grounded in addictive thinking.
Right.
There's this magical thing on the other side.
Right. Right.
Once I have this,
Yeah.
once I've gotten to that point, I'm awesome. I've got it
100%.
all. It's awesome. It's
100%.
bullshit. It's the same thing that you see somebody gets in recovery and then they're buying trucks and cars and planes and boats and everything. Because once I get to that, it will. Or they get clean and sober and then they're struggling in their relationships because they're bouncing from person to person.
Right. Right.
They're grasping all these things.
Right.
And the second piece that you talked about is this shortcut mentality. It is the Nutrisystem version of losing weight, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Like, come on, the weight loss is easy. It's not. It's not. It's not. It's difficult to do. It's challenging. But the solution is easy.
It's
Exercise
simple.
more,
Yeah.
eat less. It's
It's
pretty
simple.
simple.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
we get these cans of shit, boxes of that. Do this,
Pills.
take
Yeah.
this pill. I now have to take um uh, Pensic, or I don't even know what it is. But something again, this is
Ozempic. Yeah.
Ozempic. Yes,
Ozempic.
it's
GLP-1.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's this will solve my problem. No, 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 no. You know what's going to solve your problem? There's only one thing. There is only one person who's going to solve your problem.
Mm, this guy.
That's
Yep.
you. That's
This guy.
you. You
Yep.
you cannot, even if you go even if you go to work some sort of recovery program. Go to any of the pick a recovery program. You just can't stroll in the door and be a rock. You have to do the work.
Yeah. Yeah.
Supplies.
Yeah. As they say, you can't get sober through osmosis, as one of my
Yes.
mentors used to say. I can't go
Yes.
to the gym. I can't go to the gym and just get muscles by being at the gym and sitting in the sauna all day. I love it.
Yes.
It's a great point. I
We
think
live
that's
in a
the bane.
society that wants
Yeah.
to get happiness
Yeah.
through osmosis,
Yeah.
right? I've done a shit ton of meditation. That's hard work to do that meditation.
It is. Yeah.
And we are inundated with apps, programs, little meme things, and just where you can like meditate like a Buddhist monk with 60 seconds of your life. I know the secret. I
Yeah.
know the secret.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right, right,
Or yeah, take these 5 steps, right? Five
right,
five steps to be a good meditator or a happy person or a better wife or husband, right?
right,
Yeah,
right,
it's
right.
so
It's
true.
the same thing with psychedelics. It's the same. They're pitching that piece. And once psychedelics is gone, I don't know. It's going to be, medicinal enemas. It's
Yeah.
who knows what it's going to be. It's just a long list of bullshit. Um,
Yeah.
um, yeah.
I love it. The work comes from within, right? And I have to learn to love myself, to know myself. I have to know myself first. I have to find out who I am, what I'm about, what drives me, what makes me do things. And then I have to love that self, right? You talked about meditation, and I it's an interesting subject for me too. Let's pivot into meditation and Buddhism and how that helps you. You spent 260 days in silent meditation.
Yeah, not
Is that
all at
correct?
once. Not all at
Right.
once. I'd be like to be like, oops.
Yeah. I
That would
didn't
be
eat for
great.
260 days. Yeah.
Um, I 10 days, 12 days, 11, 14 days at a time.
Wow.
Um, and then added them all up. And I
What
will
was that
tell you
like?
that meditation and recovery, meditation and sobriety are like this form of meditation and sobriety are kind of interformed.
Yeah.
And I'll give you the shortcut piece of this. The shortcut piece.
Follow
9
me.
easy steps. The the reason that one of the things that you discover in the people first of all forget they think that meditation is supposed to make them farting rainbows and being on a cloud. That is
Yeah.
not the purpose of meditation. Absolutely not. Never has been. Ever, ever, ever. If you are hearing that from someone, they are filling you a line of BS. Meditation is like you talked about going to the gym. Meditation is like going to a gym.
Yeah.
Meditation is like working a recovery program. Meditation is like monitoring your food and eating well. You monitor your food and eat well, not because you're looking for something in that piece. You go to the gym not because you love, sweating and pumping weights and being uncomfortable. You go to the gym because you don't want to have a heart attack. You want to be able to go up the flight of stairs better. You want to be
Yeah.
able to
Yeah.
do your life better.
Yeah.
All these things are geared towards this outcome that's this far away.
Steps. Yeah. Yeah.
Steps. You work a recovery program not because you say, God, since I was a little boy and people said, what do you want to do when you grow up? I said, I'd like to work a recovery program and talk to people and talk about I want to talk about all my issues and you work a recovery program because it helps you become the person you want to be. It's some recovery program that there's even pages where they talk about promises. This is why we're doing it. This is
Yeah.
what we're going to get. That's why you work the recovery program. Same thing with meditation. And what happens, that's the truth. If someone's telling you it's going to make you fart rainbows, they're lying to you. So then what happens after you work this? What you start to realize is that we have these sensations on our body. So you start off with like breathing, and then you focus on sensations, and that's it. It's very simple. You're focusing on your sensations going all the way down. But then what happens is while you're doing this piece, your relationship with your mind comes to play. And what you discover is that we're in this on just basic sensations. There's pleasant sensations and shitty sensations,
Right.
good sensations and bad sensations. We respond with grasping for the good sensations. We want them. We chase them.
Crave them. Yeah.
We can't stand the bad sensations. We can't wait for the pain. And we build all this drama in our head. Huge amounts of drama, huge amounts of pieces around these sensations. And one of the things that you discover is that this is a huge insight for people in recovery, is that you're not addicted to alcohol.
Mm.
You're not addicted to marijuana. You're not addicted to cocaine. You're not addicted to heroin. You're addicted to the sensations, the pleasant sensations that.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't matter what the thing is. There's a pleasant sensation that comes when you buy a car. There's a pleasant sensation that comes when you're chasing after something, right?
Yeah.
And you get that car, and then it comes home and it's like,
Yeah.
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 And now I need a speedboat, right?
Yeah.
Now
Yeah.
that's what you're chasing, or relationships, or sex, right? There's a pleasant sensation. You're surfing around, you internet porn, whatever, and then boom, it's over, and then you're chasing the next piece,
Yeah.
right? You start off with internet porn, just watching two people have sex, and the next thing you know, you're like watching like, God, I didn't even know this was possible yet. Because they become desensitized to that stuff down here, and then
Yeah.
it's addiction. You just need more. You need
Uh, yeah.
um,
Chasing that dopamine, right? It's
you're
dopamine
you're
all day.
chasing
Yeah.
the sensation,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that was such an insight for me. The other piece that happens is that all of these problems, and this happens in real time. This is not some bullshit somebody telling you. This is not some book you're reading. Your experience yourself is that there are pieces on a 10-day course, and that you experience balance around
Mm.
that. You're not chasing the present. You're not chasing that, and and the balance comes when you are completely in the present moment.
Right.
Where do we hear that from? One day at a time. Stay in the present moment. Live in today, not tomorrow, not this, not yesterday. Stay in today. That's where you're going to find happiness. But in the actual micro application of physical sensations on the body, you find that your coolest, your chillest, your most awesomeness comes when you're not chasing them. And that happens when you're totally accepting what it as it
Yeah.
is, not as you would like it to be.
Right. Mm. I love that. Wow.
And there's a
There's a
Buddhist
lot of good
phrase. Here we
stuff.
go. This is my favorite Buddhist phrase. I talk about it in my books. It is yata bhuta, and that translates to as it is.
Mm.
As it is. With the people get sober, what do they hear? Accept things as they are, right?
Yeah.
Not like you want it to be. You're not the king of the world,
Right.
right?
Right. Yeah. I'm not yeah, I love that. I'm not the sheriff of the universe, right? Just because
Right.
somebody's not living according to my plan, it's okay. I don't need to judge things. I don't need to judge thoughts. I can just accept them, kind of laugh at them sometimes because there are some crazy ones that go through my mind. To me today, it's like, oh, I'm doing that thing again. Oh well, like what is this about, right? And just accepting it and moving on. I love that. I love that. You write, Scott, you read a lot about grief and healing from grief and life after loss. What's your experience with that?
So I'm going to find this book. Where's this book? Here's the other book. I just wrote this book. So
Come
there's
as you are.
Come
Yeah.
as You Are. I've written 4 books on grief, and this is the 4th one. And they're all Come as You Are. Couldn't decide on the title. The first one I wrote during COVID was called Come as You Are: Meditation and Grief. And then 3 years later, I wrote another one. I couldn't think of what to call it, so I called it Come as You Are 3 years later. And now I just wrote this one called Come as You Are 5 years later. Kind of different snapshots at different places. And I have to tell you that I've confessed this on other places before. I have, as a therapist, I have screwed a lot of people up by telling them falsities about grief, um, telling them that grief is a problem that you have to solve, telling them things like "you'll get better." Well, what the fuck? "You'll
Yeah.
get
What does
better"
that mean?
says that grief's a problem,
Yeah.
right? Oh, you
Yeah.
just have more work to do. Says that grief's something that has to be fixed. I told people in and this model has been hijacked and applied to everything, including addictions. I remember teaching people in this addiction, alcohol is your friend, and you have to go through a grieving process with your alcohol. And so right now you're working through the stages of grief: anger, denial, bargaining, depression. Some you'll get through acceptance, and you have to work through those stages, because that's what's going to help you stay clean and sober. All bullshit. All bullshit. In fact, the person who came up with this model that has been hijacked, even including about grief, she wrote on death and dying. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross wrote this book, and her focus was people who had terminal illnesses, people who are dying of cancer or some other horrible thing. They're in hospice, right? And the process these people went through dealing with their own lack of immortality, their own fallibility, their own problems, and how they get to the point of kind of being at peace, knowing that they're going to die. Right. That's what this was written about. She actually was interviewed in an article many, many years later, and they asked her about, what do you think about your model that's used in all these briefs? She said it's horrible. She's the one who came up with the model. She said it's horrible. This is not what the intention was. This is not how that grief process works. If you're grieving, I want you to know this one really important fact. If you're grieving, you should be proud of that fact. Absolutely proud of the pain that you're carrying, because that means that you exposed yourself, and courageously, you exposed yourself honestly. And you lived your life in such a way that you loved so deeply that you now have this pain that you're carrying around with you. You should be excited that you live that way. Not trying to get that. I don't want anybody to take away my grief, because that's the flip side of the coin. You cannot have light without darkness. You can't have spring and summer without fall and winter. It just doesn't work. Nothing works that way. You have to have that peace, and to push that away, and for someone to say get over it or you're still grieving, is totally disrespectful to the life that somebody chose to have with another person, or the heart that they had for their kid who was shot in school or killed in an accident, right? That's huge. Yeah. To be like, oh, you just have to work through it. You haven't done it yet. It's just bullshit.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. And thanks for sharing that. I know that, it's everybody has grief, but, yeah, for some of us, it hits a little bit harder. So I appreciate your vulnerability there and sharing that. What does it look like on the other side though? Like, what is it?
Grief is still here.
If there is another side.
There is no other side. Yeah. There's an integration. You just heard it. You just heard it in my voice. Yeah. It's there. So here's the piece. And this is the important piece to be aware of. And I want people to hear this clearly. The problem is not grief. It's the fueling of the grief. Just like the problem is not anger. It's the fueling of the anger with resentments and other shit, right? Yeah. The problem is not self-pity, poor me. It's the point where you get to pour me another drink. That doesn't happen overnight, right? Yeah. And that there's a fueling that happens there, right? The problem is in the fueling that here's a great example of kind of, and we don't freak out when people do this. Think of a funny movie you saw, and you watch that funny movie again, or you tell somebody about that funny movie, and it's hysterical and you laugh, right? I've seen The Big Lebowski, like
great film. I
right?
love that movie. Yeah.
Every time at the very end, I know it's going to happen, and just the look on his face when his buddy's ashes come flying all over him, right? You're laughing now, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
That's great.
It's he looks at him, fucking Walter, all the
Yeah.
time. I mean, just that it's hysterical. Um, People don't look and say, "Are you still laughing about that?" You need therapy to get over that. You're still
Mm.
laughing about that piece that you saw in that fucking movie. Come on,
You have a problem.
it's a
Yeah.
problem. You
Yeah.
got to work through that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
No, it's not. You're being human, right? It's a funny thing. You're laughing about it. It's not a problem. You're being a human. You loved deeply. Now you're talking about it. It's in the front of your mind, and you're feeling grief. Celebrate that fact. Don't medicate that fact. That's the same bullshit that the osmosis car salesmen, psychedelic people, and timeshare people want you to do. Buy this timeshare and you'll have the best thing. If you've ever gone to a timeshare presentation, they pull out these albums of like everybody's happy. No one's
Yeah. Yeah.
fighting over the fact
Yeah.
that
Yeah. Yeah.
everybody's happy. Well, look at all the deals. This is what you're going to get when you buy the timeshare. Um, and that just fuels that piece. It's crazy. Um,
Yeah. I love it. I love it. Oh man. Yeah. You know what, Scott? I appreciate you, man. I learned a lot today. I hopefully my listeners, and I'm sure they will get something out of it. Where can we find you, Scott? Where can people find you? Social media, books? How do we buy your books? Where do
so
we
the
find you?
easiest way to find me is to just Google, like at the bottom of my books, it says G. Scott Graham. If you Google G. Scott Graham author, Google will give you, or G. Scott Graham books. You'll get a ton of links. They're available everywhere in print, on Amazon, on Barnes and Noble, on Nook, on Apple, on Google Play. They're everywhere. They're everywhere.
Amazing.
And a number of them are free. A number of them are free.
Oh, wow. Awesome. Amazing. Well, I had a great time. Thank you so much for coming on and making time for me and my listeners. I appreciate you and keep doing the good work, my
We
friend.
do. I'm gonna have to come back. We didn't even talk about the Buddhist book here. We're gonna have to come and talk
Yeah.
about Buddhist
Well, we'll
psychotherapy.
do another one.
Yeah, and then I wrote a book on the bucket list, on
Bucket list.
using a bucket list because people are grasping things, right? You use the bucket list to reverse engineer your life so that you're living a life that's in alignment with your bucket list. It's for people who
Huh.
say, I don't know what the hell I want to do with my life. Well, you have a bucket list. Let's come up with the bucket list and then work backwards and design your life. And then you don't need the bucket list because you're totally living a life that's perfect.
Love that. Love that. Perfect for you, right? Yeah.
Perfect for you. Exactly.
Yeah.
Perfect for you.
Yeah. Yeah. Amazing. Well, thanks, Scott. I appreciate you.
Thanks.